Hi everyone, welcome to episode 15 of Photography Chat. We're going to have Monika with us here momentarily. Sorry for kicking it off a little late. Was just dealing with some stuff here. I hope everyone's having a good week. And yeah. Hello Danielle. Hope you're doing well out there. What's up JP? And we've got Monika. All right. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the chat.
Yeah.
You got Alex. Sorry for running late. A friend was just dropping off some cameras that I've been waiting with bated breath to get back from Texas, which is very exciting. Yeah. I got my custom baby is here. I haven't even seen it yet, so it's like we're gonna see these for the first time together here. Ooh, okay. So this one I was super stoked about. So this guy is super bespoken because the SLR 680s only typically came in black, and he made me a nice silver guy. Yeah.
Super slick.
It's very slick. And the other thing that's cool with it is it has a split prism focusing screen inside, which these don't typically come with. I don't know, maybe make you guys see it. Will it work?
Yeah.
No.
It's backwards.
It's backwards. Yeah, it's cool. I'm not happy with the leather, but it looks okay. That one's exciting. Yeah, and then what else we get here? Ooh, this one's kind of neat. This is the first one I bought off of Clint. It's Space Lab.
Uh-huh.
And it's been broken since I bought it from him. Getting it working for the first time. It looks great.
It's cute.
Yeah. How's your week been?
What day is it? Oh, it's Thursday.
It is.
It's been good. I guess my life's kind of been taken over for the past 24 hours by the fact that my deck, like the entire building is getting the decks are being redone. So I was notified like 2 days ago that I have to get everything off of my deck.
That seems kind of shitty and quick.
Yeah, I have a lot of plants, so it's a very large undertaking, and it's hot. Am I allowed to curse on this TV show?
You can fucking swear as much as you want, because I do.
Okay. Yeah, it was quite a pain in the ass.
And well, that's not even that big of a curse. Come on.
What?
That wasn't even that big of a curse.
Oh, well, now that I know that I can, it'll just come right out. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I have been trying to chip away at things, but I had to take a lot of medium and serious breaks and get plants inside. And my lovely partner Alex was able to help a little bit with that today, but I'm going to be doing that more again when we are done.
That does not sound very fun at all.
Working in the sun, whatever.
Well, I mean, sometimes the sun is nice, right? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
No? I mean, it's good you guys are getting some sun, because like Vancouver, historically it's not a very sunny place.
Yeah, the spring has been strange. It's been cold. It looks like the sun might be staying here now, so
that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a few people on here, so maybe say hi and let the group know who we're chatting with today.
Hi everybody. Before I go any further, I have my door open. If sirens or anything get too loud, like from your end, let me know and I'll go over and close it. It's just like hot as a bitch in here. So
That's totally fair.
yeah. So I'm Monika. I take pictures. I do other things too. It's funny because I never really thought of myself as a photographer for a really long time. Maybe only over the past year and a half have I started to consider myself a photographer. It's one of those things of when yeah, I don't know if it's like warped self-perception or like what it means to like practice anything. So certainly imposter syndrome has a lot to do with it, just like with any other thing. I've always liked taking pictures very much since I was a young kid. My dad taught me about cameras. Like I built like a pinhole camera with him when I was like 8 and taught me how to like develop and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's been this thing that is like always very within reach for me, but I don't know, maybe I always had imposter syndrome even when I was young, or I didn't care enough. My parents, especially my dad, was always like, you need to be a photographer. Like, you have an eye, like, you're really good at composition, like, you're really good at making narratives with what you take pictures of. It kind of like went over my head and I didn't care. I dabbled in it more in high school. Fell away, got back into it on my own again in university. Long story short, I've always been way more concerned with making images than the technical aspects of photography. And I think that's why the deeper you go in with anything, not caring as much about the technical aspects of something makes you feel like an imposter. I certainly experienced that as a designer as well, with, you know, my background is in graphic design. So yeah, I mean, like, that's me. I think the thing that fuels me in terms of making images is really, yeah, I tried to like kind of put this in there somewhere in my stupid little bio. Like, I'm not interested in like taking things from the world as much as I am finding stuff after the fact. I'm drawn to making images that are kind of like ways that I synthesize how I perceive things in general, whether it's like feelings or dreams or I think nostalgia plays a huge part in the ways that I try to make images. And I really use cameras as though they're their own little pets, like little animals that have their own way of, you know, digesting the world. And it's like my job to then like take whatever those little animal cameras catch. And then I like go, you know, and then I like go through them and find them. And it's cool because I think getting comfy with cameras in that way has allowed me to treat them very like specially and individually. And, you know, I might like hate a certain camera at first, but then when I force myself to shoot my favorite subject matter with it over and over and over again, eventually I find the one thing that it does, or the one way that it sees the world, that allows me to find those little bits of images that I really like to play with. So yeah, that's my long-winded introduction.
I like the idea of cameras as pets. That's kind of a cool idea. I'd take that.
I
And
don't like I've never Pokemon, but
what's that story?
it could be something like that.
Yeah, like a visual Pokemon.
Yeah.
Kat says imposter syndrome is such a struggle, and I have to agree. Like that's something I definitely have a fairly healthy battle with all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I'm not I'm not a fan of the whole imposter syndrome thing. Um, Especially like yeah, with the whole photography stuff. Like I don't even really like calling myself a photographer
Mm.
because it just there's a lot of like extra stress with that whole like moniker kind of
Yeah.
thing. And there's also like a lot of like shitty dude photographers out there. Not so much from like the aspect of like their photos are shitty, but like that they're just shitty people.
Oh yeah. I'm so glad we're talking about this. Um, I think that's the case with like so many practices, like not just photography, but that was like just the yes, I feel the same. It was I uh, that was something that bothered me a lot when I was like in I guess like in undergrad, like university age, and I had started dabbling with it again. It's just like I don't care about jerking off about gear. Um, and that's one aspect of that
Well,
environment.
you don't want to talk about like your favorite camera and you know what inspires you the most with it and your favorite lens and the film stock that like helps you
I mean,
achieve your vision
I can't. I think it's like this thing is like I almost view like you know it's I'm gonna get like real and spicy I guess like I almost view religion in the same way like faith spirituality keep that stuff to your like that it's cool it's good for you keep it to yourself that's like part of your creative practice and it's good to definitely I'm not discounting that it's amazing to have a dialogue about it and it's very important and it
Yeah,
helps us discover new tools and things but going back to the whole like dudes shitty dudes with cameras thing is just like yeah it's like I found that in cycling I found that in well not so much like in graphic design, but there was like, well, it does exist in graphic design, but like in other industries that I've worked in, and just anything that I've ever done, it's like if you can't talk shop the right way with the men who were doing it, like they're just like, oh, you like go over there and
well,
have
not
fun.
to get off topic on the men thing, but like religion is an interesting one because I did just get in trouble recently for a religious based thing at work. um, I said, in reference to something being old, that it's been around since Christ was a cowboy, and that apparently was, you know, something that got me in trouble, which was kind of interesting to me, because I'm like, well, I'm Catholic, I don't find that offensive. Like,
Yeah,
you know, Jesus is old, and so are cowboys.
like
Like,
literally.
where's the problem here? Um,
Yeah,
but on like the front of like you know shitty men being everywhere, like that's an interesting thing that I'm also like unpacking at work at the moment, where it's like I'm on this project where I'm paired with a female partner on this like one specific project, and I'm brand new to it. Like I just started on this like new project, and you know we were assigned a task, which I was like, this task is stupid and pointless, and we shouldn't be doing this task. And so she emailed the project lead, being like, you know, this is our feedback, more guidance. And this project lead phones me instead of the woman that sent him the email and like opens it up with like fucking women, man. You like ask them one thing and you get all these like questions back, and you know it's just like nagging, and like you know you just can't. And I was like, whoa, 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 like what? And he was just like, well, yeah, like she came back and said like this stuff, and I'm like, well, she was just relaying what I said because I think this is stupid, and I still think this is stupid, but now we've got a bigger problem on our hands here. And yeah, so that's like a new thing that's unfolding at work right now. on
Hmm.
top of all the racial stuff that we've talked about as well,
Yeah.
which is
Fun, 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 fun.
so much fun. I don't like being a grown up.
I don't know. I personally like being a grown up a lot. Um,
That's fair.
because I like sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
That's
But
fair. I do like drugs a lot, and just like Fat Mike and NoFX, hey, drugs are good.
mm,
Yeah, and sex is fun too, and rock and roll, of course, all those things.
mm.
Jeffrey did have a question here though. How do you guys deal with imposter syndrome? He's found it hard at times.
I could go on forever about this. I think, let's see, the hardest, like the most resilient form of imposter syndrome that I've had is definitely that I've had with like design and art and creative direction, simply because like that's what I've done for work for the longest time. I think I successfully started dealing with it by just doing things like making stuff. We all will have those ideas for projects in our head, things that we want to do, desires that like just pop in there, like, oh my god, this is a great idea. And the self-critic, who is very important. And I think a lot of creative people have an extremely active self-critic, and we have to have that in order to produce and in order to tell ourselves whether what we're producing is good enough for us and good enough according to the idea of the kind of work that we want to be doing, that we want to be putting out there into the world. So you have to kill the self-critic a little bit. And instead of, I mean, for me personally, I should say, I have a tendency to overthink whenever I get an idea and be like, who else has done this? Why am I doing it? If I do it, how am I going to end up doing it better? The further down that, if you want to call it a tunnel or a rabbit hole I travel, the further away I get from like the reason why I would really want to do that work to begin with. So the imposter syndrome happens like the further you go down that hole and don't allow yourself to just make things. I find that when I just, like tell the self-critic to shut up and allow myself to get lost in ideas and really just like muck around, not even like think about what I'm doing, but like just fucking like follow, like, oh, I like the way the sun is like doing this thing on this. Okay, I'm gonna try this, and now I'm gonna try that. Like just letting yourself follow something and make mistakes, and then make something out of that idea, whatever the fuck it is. That's been the best way for me to like kill it a little bit, because the more I do that, the more I can see, well, it's not always going to land, or become like a body of work that I'm like all about right now. But it's continually proving to myself that there's no reason for me to believe that I can't do the things that I want to do, and that the things that I do they're actually good enough. They're different than what anybody else does. What do you do?
What do I do? Oh wow. Okay, me. So I struggle with imposter syndrome a lot, in like all facets of my life. Because like I work in an industry where like most people are like highly educated. I barely passed high school. Not because I'm stupid, but because I enjoyed, drugs and alcohol a lot more than I enjoyed school as a child. And yeah, so like that's been always interesting when people find out that like I have no education background, and it almost like ruins credibility a bit. And like when I was younger, there was like I was like really scared of people knowing about that. But what I'm finding now is I'm like cresting 40, is that I just don't give a shit anymore. And not giving a shit is like a superpower because I'm just like, well, I obviously know what the hell I'm doing because I've been doing it for decades now. So go fuck yourself if you think I'm dumb. Um, and it's also sort of empowered me to like speak truth that I would have never done before, which is something that I struggled with a lot because like, I am not proud to admit that like I've stood by, well, racist and sexist and marginalizing acts have happened to other people around me. And I was afraid to speak out because I was worried of it like impacting my place and privilege and like, that the situation that I was in. And, I'm finding now as I'm older, I just don't really give a shit because it's just like, oh, okay, so you want to like, reprimand me for something on this. A discrimination suit will probably pay very nicely. So like, bring it on. Let's do this dance, you pieces of crap. But on the photography side of things, also not caring helps out a lot with that too because I did find at first like I was comparing myself to um, a lot of other stuff that I see out there, and then when I first started like getting into the gram stuff and like using the grams more for photography stuff, there's that inherent sort of desire to like get those likes and get that engagement and interaction. And it's something that I've learned over and over in different facets of my life is that it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of things. And it's not about how many likes you get, but it's about like who's engaging with you and the people that appreciate the things that you're sharing. And I know that I don't have as many followers as like some other like people that post photography work out there have, and I don't get as much engagement, but I've had some very like almost like gut wrenching messages from people, just sort of relaying how photos I've posted have meant a lot to them. And even the chat, like, um, I have no idea what I'm doing with the chat. And, it's just, it started on a lark like last year with Jason Moore, because I was just doing that stupid cooking show thing. And like, I don't know what it's going to be. And I still don't understand what it is right now. And there's been times where I've like wanted to totally like punch out and bail on it because it is a lot of like work and emotional labor to like do this weekly thing. And it's almost like the gods know or something because like every time I'm just like, fuck it, like I'm just gonna stop doing this thing. I'll get like a message from someone being like, hey, like, I just wanted to say thanks for like doing these chats, or I just tuned in and like it's really cool to like hear you chat with all these different people. And especially during COVID times where like I've several people have like sent messages being, hey, like I can't get out and meet people, so like this weekly thing is a neat thing because it's almost like I'm meeting a new friend every week, and like I'm learning new perspectives and like new things. And so I was like, oh shit, now I can't quit. But then that also sort of like flares up the imposter syndrome a little bit because it's just like this is a lot of pressure. Oh my god! And I'm like, I'm just an idiot man child that has no fucking idea what he's doing at the best of times, and there's people relying on me. Um, so I don't have a good answer how to deal with imposter syndrome other than just like, you're gonna have good days and bad days sometimes, and
Mhm.
the biggest thing to try is to not care so much about what people think or to please people. And so one of the people that actually helped me give less a shit about opinions and actually helps me whenever I am having like an imposter syndrome moment is Mocha Only. Um, he's a rapper from Vancouver for people that aren't familiar with Mocha Only. He was part of like Swollen Members for a while and a bunch of other different rap groups, and he is a very eccentric individual and a friend. Um, and we were talking one night, and he said, "I make music for me." That's what I make it for. I don't really give a shit what other people think about it, but he's like, I make music that I want to jam out to, and if people like it, that's cool, and if they don't, whatever, it's not for them. Like, it's for me. And that's something that's kind of stuck with me. And I had this really pretentious douchebag photographer in Miami during Art Basel in 2019 that I ran into at this really weird art house cinema. And he just kind of snarkily said to me, he's like, "Who do you shoot for?" And I was like, "Me, I shoot for myself." And he didn't really like that answer much because it wasn't some fancy place or something, but it's like I take pictures for me, and if other people dig them, then that's cool. But it's just like, I make pictures that I like, or things that I want to remember that I don't want to forget about, or that I found interesting. And yeah, I think when you start doing things more for you than other people, the imposter syndrome gets a little easier to deal with.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
think, I don't know, everybody has emotional investment in the work that they do, which is, I think, just personally a tremendously important thing to be in touch with and keep tabs on, and know how much of that emotion lives like completely within your own investment in it, and how much of the emotion lives in the other parts of your investment, which is, I don't know, is it like how the work is received, or how what you do is received? Is it what you gain back from it? All those things. I find that actually this struck me several days ago. Okay, so DMX passed away just about almost a week
I
ago.
know. I was
Um,
super bummed out about that, but
and
the
I was listening to a podcast, a New York Times podcast. They put out a really good, just they interviewed the guy that co-wrote his autobiography with him, and it's quite obvious listening to his music, and we all like know this about, I think, DMX in terms of his the emotional locus of his work. But I was struck to actually hear the interviewee, the writer that worked on this book with him, talk about how music was such a like a powerful and stirring, almost unstoppably forceful emotional outlet for DMX. That when he compared it with, he's like acted in films and stuff.
yeah,
He said something like, I could do like 10 films and it would be easier for me than doing like one album. And I totally like, across all the work that I do, I have all those different portions of like emotional presence and investment, and I found that just like, wow, because for me music is the same thing. Like um photography, design, those things, like they can make me cry sometimes, but like
yeah.
music is the one thing that I do where it's like when I'm feeling too much I actually can't do it, and I have to put it aside because of like I guess the Venn diagram, or the schematic of how much emotional investment is in there and how much of that is for myself. It's like for me, music is the one, like that 100%, like the whole circle is just like, this is all for me. um and if there's too much going on, I can't engage with it because I'll cry.
I can get that.
And not just
Music,
because music takes for fucking ever to do like anything, but
yeah,
yeah.
music is a very powerful medium. Like, I used to play in bands when I was younger, and like it was a lot of fun to do that kind of stuff, and it's a great outlet. But I definitely find, like for myself, find more of an emotional connection to photography. And it's not about like the techniques and things like that, because like I have no fucking idea what I'm doing with the cameras. Like I just buy shit and dick around with it until I get a desired result. But there's definitely been like there's stuff that I'll never share publicly because it's just like it's too personal, or like I wouldn't be able to accept any like criticism about it because it's just like there's too much feeling around those things.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also just lots of stuff that's like is just not for public consumption. Like, it's
Yeah.
just something that was like important for just me, or like important between like me and the person that were taking those photos. Um, and yeah, like I don't know, photography can be really powerful sometimes. Like, um, I really like the work of like Ed and Deanna Templeton. I don't know if you've ever checked out their stuff.
Mm-mm.
So like Ed, he's like another one of those like most of the photographers I like all used to be like ex-pro skateboarders. So it's like Ed Templeton owns Toy Machine and like the
Oh,
whole
okay.
Jason Lee thing and like all that stuff. But Ed and his wife Deanna have been together like for ages, and they're both fantastic photographers. Um, and I really like they do a lot of these like sort of like intimate like personal portraits of each other that they've shared
Mm-hmm.
that have like this like I really like photos that you can feel like that moment, and it's almost like you're like transported into like that moment, and you can kind of like feel that image and stuff. And I'd always wanted to make something that felt that way, and I did last year, and it scared the shit out of me. Like it
Did you
was like
find it was like a concerted effort to produce something like that, or was it just happened? Like,
it just happened. Like
yeah.
it was just like a connection with a person, and I didn't even know that the images were going to be that powerful until I got them back from the lab and I looked at them and I was just like gobsmacked.
Mm.
And it actually they scared me because I was just like, holy shit, like this is like the white elephant I've been chasing, and now I'm like face to face with it, and I kind of want to shit my pants.
Yeah, I definitely have stacks of photographs. I mean, also ones that are very personal that in certain periods of time, I don't even want to look at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that okay. So yeah, I can. I guess there's a caveat to my personal um, structure. I think there are some photographs that do get close to music for me, where sometimes I can't engage. That certainly happened this past summer, which I wasn't something that I didn't really like feel like talking about for a while, but I was, I guess not that recently now, like several months ago I was interviewed and I ended up talking about it, and so I'm like, well, fuck, now it's out. The relationship us from ourselves to our work is a really interesting thing to observe. And I think it's easy to take for granted until you're presented with a life experience or, man, like, a context, anything that really causes you to see for yourself how much a creative output is a way of just pulling stuff out of you, and that is also just so connected to things about who you are that at any point in time you may or may not want to remember or face. Yeah, it happened for me this summer because I got really sick, and then there was family stuff, and for a solid like, I don't know, well, you know about this, but yeah, like 3-4 months I was both experiencing extreme like body dysmorphia, and I was just kind of alienated from the familial impetus for my photography work, which is my relationship with my dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I was at a standstill because like I use photography to process things, especially like things about myself personally, and it was wrenching. I felt like I was like in so much sadness and stress and despair and grieving, and I had nothing to turn to because like the all the outlets that I would normally turn to, and especially photography, just became like too hard for me to
Yeah.
engage with. And that was so incredible to witness in myself. Because I always kind of thought, like, you know, like if I can't do music, if there's nothing, you know, like photography also always felt like the last bastion of like creative work that I do to help myself, and to kind of like actually break through that wall and just be like, oh my god, I'm like living through an experience where I can't even do that. It blew my fucking mind. And it was just as wonderful and interesting to see myself come back into being able to do it again and what that looked like.
I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Mm.
Yeah. We got real quick.
I
But
don't
that
think
happens on the
anything's
chat
too
too.
real to talk about.
No, I don't think anything's too real to talk about either. Like, I mean, I it's not the most intense conversation I've had on the chat. That crown belongs to Mr. David Hunter, who made me cry on our chat that I had with him last year, because we just hit some like very very emotional topics. Because yeah, photos do have a lot of power and weight. Like, I've got a gray box of photos that I don't want to look at all, but I also don't want to destroy them. I do want to light them on fire very badly. Like, whenever I think about them, I want to torch them. But then I'm like, one day I'm not going to feel that way about them. And if I do, if I did end up torching them, I would be, pretty remiss about that. So I have a gray box where things go to die for a little while.
I
Yeah.
have that too, but it's just like folders of like shitty London drugs prints and like
Hmm.
the CD ROMs that they give you because they don't know how else to give you scans.
I know that's like the one thing I'm sad about moving to Vancouver is that like there's just not a decent lab there. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the lab, but
yeah, but they charge so much damn money and they charge like a fucking arm and a leg for scans. Like, their
yeah,
scanning prices are stuck in like 2001.
yeah. That's why I go to London Drugs because it's just like,
Right? I've been very spoiled by Toronto. Alex
what?
disagrees.
Alex says I'm lying.
Yeah. I know the lab's good. Like, not to disparage like Rocket Reproduction and,
Mm.
the lab. But like I've been extremely spoiled by like what Downtown Camera does, because like I literally just drop my film off and give them money, and then like either the same day or the next day I get a text message with all of my pictures.
Yeah,
And then at some point when it behooves me to go in and pick up my negatives after they complain a bunch that I have stacks of negatives sitting there, I go fetch them. So
I really like it. Like, London Drugs is like aberrantly slow, like so fucking slow, and their sort of system for getting you your stuff is very like I kind of imagine like a bunch of gerbils like in a shoebox that are just like, and sometimes the outputs come out like at the right time, but usually it's like you don't, like, say I order like scans and prints, like they'll get the scans and then I'll like put in orders for like the prints from the scans, which is kind of how their system works, but then like the prints never happen, or like I'll ask for like 2 or 3 of like a couple exposures and I never I never get like I never get the extras. It's like you never know what's going to fucking happen. It's great. I'm just like, okay, well, at the end of the day, all I care about is that I get the scans. So
And
that's
at least it's like better than Walmart. Like for our American and Eastern friends out there, London Drugs is like CVS or Rexall, and they just happen to also sell a lot of photography equipment. Like they're
they
huge in that.
sell everything.
They
This is
do.
an important thing to like tell American homies. But it's a really, oh man, yeah. And when I first moved here, I was just like, what is this place? And I had like a friend who was half American and like his family was from Calgary, and he was like, yeah, okay, like London Drugs is its own, like, imagine Walmart, but it's not Walmart, but you can still get lawn chairs and like floaty pool noodles, but you can also get your photos developed, and you can also buy CDs, and you can all, but it's not quite at the level of a Walmart. It's just like a
It's like
drugstore.
it's like the Whole Foods of Walmart's.
I don't know. I think it might
'Cause
be a little bit too like
it's a little more
regular
upscale
for
than a
that.
Walmart is, but it's a little bit more upscale than a Walmart because it's like if a Walmart was like a tiny bit more upscale and bougie with an Apple store, it would be a London.
I would put London Drugs on the same plane as like CVS.
That's fair. Yeah, it's like CVS with an Apple store and a photo lab.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do love the shit out of CVS.
Oh
That's
my
like
god. Oh my god.
I miss America.
I
Like
also miss America.
so like I'm in the middle of packing right now and I was like going through some cabinets and I found an old Charlie card from my last trip to Boston and it made me like so sad because I was just like I miss Boston.
Mm. I never really miss. Apologies to anybody here who's from Boston.
I think it's just Pete if he's still on. You know, Pete
Who?
straight out of Mac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I never
he's a
missed Boston. I like, and I, I grew up going there very regularly. I never miss it. I just like, oh, it would be nice to like spend 6 hours there, but uh,
Cromwell, the Soul Stealer's from there. I mean,
oh,
the problem with Boston is it's filled with a bunch of massholes.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm from New Hampshire, guys, so it's not like I don't know what y'all are about.
But you don't. You've been in
You
Canada
come
long
up to
enough.
where
You
I, they come up to where I live or am from to like get things at the liquor store because we don't have a sales tax. And like, I don't know what else they can do there that is so radical. We used to not have seatbelt laws. I don't know if New Hampshire now has seatbelt
Yeah,
laws.
Pete's in New Hampshire. So Pete's the
Oh,
guy that
why?
I do large format Fridays with Pete.
Cool.
Yeah,
Butts
butts too.
too.
I mean, who doesn't like butts?
Yeah, it's so real. I forgot about that. Like going to convenience stores in New Hampshire that are just like in southern New Hampshire, kind of like close to the border, is a really like, yeah, get you cigarettes, like get you fucking like.
There you go. There she is. That's.
I have to think really hard before I do a New England accent. I grew up like with a Polish accent and like a New Yorker, so
Oh wow.
I have to like. Yeah, I have to have New Englanders like kind of talk at me for a little bit before I'm like,
So
yeah.
I used to work at a call center for Time Warner Broadband Roadrunner Cable, and we had to deal with Americans primarily, and this is when I lived in Kamloops. But the problem I had there was like when I hear people's accents, I start talking back to them in those accents. Like if
That
if
happens
we're
to
on the call for a long time and then people be
yeah.
like, "You making fun of me?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Like
Yeah, I'm trying my best over here to just sound like myself.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Photography is like a wild thing. I'm excited though that I got a new toy today that we'll have to play with when I get to Vancouver. Um, it's very exciting. Ugh. Is a
Lots of
Polaroid
stuff.
8x10 processor.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
the first step. And then I got like here's the film holder for it. So it's got like the 8x10 Polaroid film holder to
Mhm.
shoot the big old instant films. So they're getting like really hard to find now, and a friend of mine had a spare one and was
Mhm.
like, "I'll give you a good deal on it."
Mhm.
So it's kind of like hilarious that I now have an 8x10 processor, but I do not have an 8x10 camera yet.
It's amazing. I
But it's
have to,
coming.
by the way, like, I want to thank you so much for throwing me that one step. Um, I honestly never thought that I would get into instant photography. And after,
Really?
yeah, I don't know. I always kind of like, okay, I had a land camera like a really long time ago, and then it very quickly became like not that usable, slash, I could only use it as like a slide film situation because I would have had to like open it, put a card in, expose it, then like run back into it, so like that was not very efficient.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like I never thought of my stuff translating to that format because I've always been about like hyper detailed, like, and just especially the kind of textures I'm really into, just like highlights and like splashes of light and like color. Like I just like, it'll be too muddy. Like it won't pick up the things that I'm like obsessed with. However, when I got that camera from you, I was like, okay, this is a fun challenge. Like, how am I going to translate like my shit to this little new animal pet thing? Like going back to what I said at the beginning. And because, in our heads, instant is really just like, oh, it's like you have one at a party and you take these like high flash, like fun whatever photos of people and they're instantaneous and then you put it on your fridge. um I hadn't I mean, I'd seen tons of like amazing instant photography, but I never like put my stuff and like my work in my head like in that area, um for making the things that I like to make. So yeah, there was one blessed day, like I guess it would have been like 2 months ago now, when I was like, okay, if I make double exposures and I'm very like strategic and scientific about it, I think I can figure out how to like translate like my worldview into this a little bit. And it was really like, and that was kind of like all I want to do. And I'm just like, I want more. I want like a bigger one. I want one that like, I the thing has been like popped open for me. The
Well,
one,
the one step the one step plus, like I think it's a very underrated camera, honestly. Like a lot of people are quick to condemn it because like they're like it's an I-type camera and it's cheap, it's got a plastic lens and like all this stuff. But you know, you could look at it that way, or you could look at it like here's a tool that has all these great functions that no other Polaroid camera has right now, unless you spend like the money on like a Mint SLR 670. But being able to have, which doesn't even have like the Bluetooth control and stuff, which is like super cool. Like, you know, the pandemic book that I'm going to be putting for pre-order once I get to Vancouver, because I'm not going to try and do that um, while I'm doing the move here. That wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the One Step Plus, because being able to like remote control it with a Bluetooth and have like all those options and stuff, like it's such a cool camera. But now that you're hooked on Polaroid, the next step is you got to get yourself one of the pop-up guys.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really want one. And I totally felt like weird about all of the functionalities of the One Step for a little bit there. Just like, this is. I think it's because I tend to think about the market applications of any product, which is a natural side effect of having worked in marketing and worked as like a creative director. I'm just like, why does this thing exist? Oh, it exists because they got to make these people happy. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, this is so weird that it like connects to my phone and like,
It's cool though, like when you get around to it, like it's a very funky little camera. And one thing to try with it, if you're taking a picture of someone, tilt it sideways and shoot them sideways, because the flash, the way that it diffuses the light, it shadows them. So it kind of like creates this neat shadow. You were there the first time I figured it out, because we were at Mammy Taylor's having dinner, and I took a picture of my friend
oh,
Brian and discovered that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
You
were
took
there
a
when I
picture of me
discovered it.
going like this.
Yeah. It was so great. Um,
Mm. Uh,
John
epistematic.
has
Yeah.
a question for you here. If you shoot large format,
Pardon?
John was asking if you shoot large format.
I oh not large, medium. And I was like, can I find it? Is it around? I think it's in the drawer. I have a really like turn of last century medium format camera.
Medium
Like
format's fun.
one of the 1910s possibly.
Oh shit! So it's like one of the pop-out
It's like
ones kind of thing.
and then it's got like a little
Nice.
bellows and it's like
I
um,
just scored this guy. I traded my Nikon F3 for this Texas Leica, and it's a fucking tank. I'm kind of in love with this thing. But the whole point of moving was I was supposed to stop getting new stuff, and you know I seem to be getting more of it. And John, I do not have an 8x10 yet, but that is on the coming soon thing. So Armand at the Denton Camera Exchange in Denton, Texas, is holding on to an 8x10 for me that we're working things out on. So um, yeah, we'll be able to play with, because if you want to get into like, you know, bigger Polaroid Monica, it doesn't get any bigger than the 8x10.
Monica.
Monika, yes. Sorry, my bad. Um, yeah, so we can definitely play around with that guy this summer.
Yeah, I would love that. I'm hungry for more better stuffs. I've been really interested in the distressing that happens with the exposures too. Sometimes it pisses me off because it seems like sometimes they get kind of streaky, and I'm just like, I wish that wasn't like the first sort of batch of crazy double exposures I did. They all had like I think there was like a partially exposed sort of strip in the middle of the stack of film. So they all came out with like.
Well, what can also happen too is sometimes, because there's actually three different developer pods. I don't know if you could here. Okay, you can't really see it, it's super bright, but there's actually three different. Oh yeah, now you can see it. And there's me. Um, you can see there's three different developer pods, and sometimes if one of them is aged differently than the other ones, you'll get weird development happen.
Ah.
So
Oh,
if you're getting a consistent streak in like one area, it could be one of the development pods, and maybe it was just like a bad batch of them.
yeah.
And
It was just that one batch of black and white
then
thing.
temperature is also like a very picky thing. Like they don't like being too cold. They don't like being too hot. So like that's like if you have the camera out and cold and it's been very chilly, then you might see some weird aberrations
Mm.
inside of the photo. And then like if you are shooting when it's colder out, what I typically do is I take the shot and tuck it under my armpit,
Mm.
like let it sort of percolate in the heat a little bit, and then I always keep the boxes that I pull the film out of, and I put so after a couple minutes under the armpit, I put the shot inside of the box so that it could percolate in the dark. If you want to be super bougie, you can buy the Brooklyn Film Camera toaster that's soon to be coming out, so that you can put it in an electric lockbox, which has the perfect temperature and everything.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I'm sure lots of hipsters will jump on that shit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the revival of, I don't know, is there a revival of instant film going on right now? I feel like there is, simply because of the way that it's being used right now in concert with the aesthetic that it latches itself. Well, that its aesthetic is its aesthetic, but its aesthetic has become such a normalized and omnipresent part of like visual culture within the last like I don't know, like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I had
Well,
like a lot of good like sort of spitballs with some other friends and photographers about how much that look has actually influenced. And I mean, like Alex and I just complain about this a lot too. How much it influences when you work in commercial photography. How
mm,
much the desire for that aesthetic pervades and then like informs like what is expected of like commercial work. And it's a kind of wild thing to sort of like, like Instagram is kind of how we digest this shit, but it's wild to like see that being replicated, not just in the like, oh, like you go to Instagram, like all this stuff looks the same, but then to have that when you work in commercial photography or in marketing, um, see the effects of that actually come at you in terms of like, this is what we're going for, this is what we'd like, blah 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 blah, like for like selling things. It's like it's obviously a thing that happens, okay, but it like seeing it in real time blows my mind.
well, there definitely has been a lot more interest in it. Like it's Impossible and Polaroid Originals and now Polaroid have done a really good job of like reviving the medium for Polaroid specifically, and then like Fuji, um, you know, if you can say they did a good thing, um, have done a good thing with like the Instax platform where they've created a very great film medium. Like Instax film medium, I will not disparage how good it is because the film itself is like fantastic. Their cameras just suck. But that's for the target market though. Like they're positioning these cameras for entry level consumers, like for parties and things like that. Like here, get these moments, or for like kids to play around with like the Instax Mini to like capture their moments and stuff. And it's a great gateway getting into like the instant film sort of like rabbit hole.
Mm.
In Polaroid, for as much as people like to criticize them now, has been doing a good job of like keeping this medium alive. Is it perfect? Not even close. Like it's and I think that's something that a lot of people either don't know or tend to forget is that this is not Polaroid film, even though it says Polaroid today. When they first started making this film in 2008, um, it was called Polaroid compatible film. because it's not exactly the same film. So it's like, original Polaroid had 10 shots inside of it. New Polaroid has only 8, because the new frames are a lot thicker than the original frames were. And also all of the chemical compounds and all the chemistry inside of it is completely different from the original Polaroid. Um, and like, there was a lot of people sort of like shitting on the latest thing that they released, which was the round frame Polaroids, which we're definitely going to play with because I ordered a whole bunch of them, and
Oh.
they're on the like. I decided to have them shipped to the Vancouver house instead of like shipping them to Toronto because I was like, I don't want to like not be here when they arrive. So, but a lot of people were sort of poo-pooing on the round frame stuff because like literally all they did to make round frame was they just masked a round frame on like a regular thing. So it's like there's like the corners are still going to have film and like developers still going to go on them, but you're only going to be um, shooting the center part of it. And a lot of people are like, oh, like a great way to waste money. And it's like, whatever. Like, if people enjoy it and people create things with it and have fun with it, then what's the problem? Like, just because you don't want to buy it because you think it's a way, then don't. Like, just don't buy it. Like, like I kind of look at it as like it's a very great privilege to be able to buy film for these cameras that technically should be dead now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when Polaroid died in 2008, these cameras all died with it. And so now, like in 2021, to still be able to buy film to take any kind of image with it is kind of amazing. Like, and then the revival is continuing beyond like the Polaroid cameras that shoot the SX70 and 600 film. Is that there's companies in like the Massachusetts, New Hampshire. There's one out there called New 55, and New 55 is reviving 4x5 instant sheet film, which is super fucking cool. So like there's another like if you want to get into big frame instant film, we could dick around with the large format camera this summer, and like I've been meaning to order some New 55 so we can get some of that up and play around with that. But you can have 4x5 sheets of like instant film, and then there's Super Sense out of Vienna that has made the one instant product, which is not a replacement for pack film because they can't do pack film like the way they used to, but they've created this system where you can do one shot in a pack film camera with the one instant film, and that's pretty freaking cool too. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's expensive and ridiculous, and I'm like, then don't buy it. Like, I don't think it's expensive or ridiculous. Like, yeah, it's a little pricey, but it's another way to create. It's another tool to experiment with. And it's also something that's going to keep these old cameras that I love alive just a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's pretty cool. And sadly, Ishkan, you're not going to get it from Downtown Camera. It was an online only thing, and Polaroid sold out of it the first day that they launched it. So, you know, they might do another run of the round frames. So, keep an eye on that and see what's up.
Yeah. What was I just gonna say? I kind of wish I had an Instax Mini. I don't know. I think Alex might have one somewhere.
You don't
Somehow,
have it. You guys don't have an Instax Mini?
if not, it's not in my possession.
Okay.
If it exists, it's in,
It,
it's
if
in,
you are gonna go with an Instax camera, the one I would really recommend is go Instax Square because it's just a little bit bigger than the Instax Mini. So it's like this is an Instax Mini. The Instax Square squares it up a little bit, so it's like it's all even. So it's almost like a miniature version of a Polaroid.
Alex.
But
Nope.
oh dang, well, you can find them used. I might have an extra one. I'd probably be selling when I get over there because I have a big camera purge. So yeah, I do have one actually. So
Ooh,
we can
double
we can talk about
exposure!
that one.
Yay!
Yeah, they do double exposure, and they do double exposures really well. Like, I think you'd have a lot of fun with an SQ6. Um, yeah, when I get to Vancouver, you can try it out, and if you like it, we can work something out.
Cool.
And the kind of bonus with Instax is it is cheaper than Polaroid, so
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of cool. Yeah, the credit card size. So Chris makes a point here. The credit card size is kind of neat. And I do like it. Like I usually use Mini to give away photos to people because it is cheaper. Like giving away Polaroids gets expensive after a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I, because now it's like all the film that I have is like, I just really want to use it for the very purposeful, like, kind of work that I've been doing with it that I almost feel not bad, but you feel the investment pressure a little bit with like, oh, if I just use this to take a picture of like something random instead of like what I want to like use it for this project or use it for creatively, it's just kind of like, whoa, that's a I lost some money there. But I guess it's like that with everything. I
Sure.
became what?
It definitely is. Like I mean, it's an expensive thing, but as best as you can, try not to look at it like a precious resource because like um you just have fun creating with it.
I do.
Um, and like if you do want to get into a pop-up camera, I would probably recommend either the SX70 Sonar or regular SX70. Just because like you have access to a studio, and one of the cool things you can do with it is you can get an adapter so that you can plug it into studio lighting. So you can like either hook it up to a wireless trigger or just directly plug it in.
Mm.
And fucking around with studio lighting on Polaroid, I've been able to like create some really cool shit.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get, I don't know, back to imposter syndrome. That was always a thing. There was like, oh. Also, somebody just said Instax color is better than Polaroid. Totally noticed that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's why it's kind of like in my head. But yeah, I guess because like I kind of have worked, with Alex a lot in studio, and like so that was kind of always his domain, and then my domain has been like, I don't know, out in the world shit. But as I've been honing in more and more, especially with, well, actually specifically with the Polaroid camera and using my home as a studio and creating lighting setups at home for it, I've been so interested in actually making stuff in the studio with that. Um, which again is an interesting confrontation of preconceived notions about what that film is for and what it can do, because again, the outcome's not the same as when we use like a more like hi-fi um, output for that kind of work. But I think it's just as beautiful and important, and yeah,
It
challenging.
can be, but I think like when you try it in one of the SLR cameras, it does change it quite a bit because like these cameras have like a real like glass lens in them, and when you're looking through it, like you're actually seeing what you're creating for the image because they're a true SLR camera.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot more flexibility for like what you're creating with it there because when you're shooting with like the one step or other box cameras, you don't actually get to see what the camera is seeing. So you're
Yeah.
just kind of like you're looking through that barrel beside the lens and you're kind of like just guessing. Um, so yeah, like maybe I'll let you play with one of them in the studio and you can um, see if it's for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like,
There's so
glass
much.
changes everything. like the camera that it's in changes everything, but
Yeah.
there was just a personal, like, my mind hadn't gone there at all with instant until I started doing shit at home and being kind of deliberate with it.
Well, then, yeah, like I think that's a fair point because a lot of people don't really take instant very seriously,
Well,
and
yeah, totally, yeah.
there's a very interesting community all around instant. That's part of this poster right there. That's for Policon, which Brian, who's going to be my guest next week, is one of my Polaroid brothers out there, and some of the stuff that people are creating with instant is mind blowing, like just absolutely gorgeous,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and just yeah, it's very interesting. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, dreamy.
Yeah, it can be very dreamy. Like it's neat. And then like also like it's getting a bit harder to find it now, but like when I was first getting into it, like being able to find old expired films to play with, it was so cool. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of like neat stuff that you could do with those expired films, like depending on um how the emulsion is and how the chemicals are. Like some of my favorite photos I've made with expired film, but it's getting harder to find now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Instant's cool. I have definitely spent more money than I like to think on film.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't? I got kind of spoilt. Well, okay, so I really like my Fujifilm XTI because it really does and did and still, allows me to sort of like have a visual idea and kind of like rip through it and like I can take as many as I want and they look like this.
Yeah.
Which is, that's a real ass thing. But my appetite for carrying cameras that require me to sit there and be a bit of a perfectionist about it has interestingly enough waned in, well, I guess over the past year. And I've become a little bit more obsessed with things that like involve a lot of release of control. And kind of like only dialing the things that I know that I can or want to dial, and then everything else just like fuck it. If that's not in focus, I don't really care. I think actually now that I like narrate my head, I think that the only thing that I really care about in the end is framing. As long as something is like perfectly framed, like exactly the way I want it to, I won't care if like I fuck something else up.
Well, and sometimes like sharpness and focus and like those all that kind of stuff aren't really like framing is really like the important part
Mm.
because I've noticed like there's been some shots that I've taken recently where it's like the focus is off, but I still like how it all turned out because it actually gives the picture more feeling than it would have had if it was like all sharp and right.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like using older lenses and stuff like that was something that I learned from Jason was who sometimes it is interesting to use like older glass and glass that's maybe like been beat up a little bit because it gives this sort of like softness and sometimes like a dreamy quality
Mm-hmm.
to the images.
Yeah, it's like Alex got a bunch of like yes, I'm here just talking about my creative life partner on this. He got a bunch of like old glass a couple months back, and it's been interesting. I don't know if it's because I have shitty vision, but I have hypothesized that this could be why. I have shitty vision. I have astigmatism, so my eyes just like they compete with each other. If I look through a viewfinder of any kind, I'm either like not going to actually see um, what's really going on, and I hate wearing glasses, and I don't usually wear glasses unless I'm reading. So Anyway, I've hypothesized that I care about framing so much because that's what locks in like the balance, like the gestalt of the image is just like what is in that
Yeah.
and how are things distributed. Um, and I think, you know, I used to get really mad about like, oh man, I wanted this thing to be in focus and, and it's not in focus. And I don't know, I guess I've become more used to and really comfy with just like, I want to get the balance right um, in terms of like what is being shown. But
Yeah.
outside of that, I'm kind of happy for there to be um, a lot of like God knows what the fuck going on.
That's very true. Yeah. Just as long as it's kind of fun. Like, I mean, so part of that Texas Leica deal was I also got this little Soviet number. It's a Russian tech Leica ripoff.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So it's called a Zorky, and it has like they ripped off like Leica completely. Like they ripped off the body, they ripped off the lens, and like this lens is like fuck like probably from like the 50s or maybe later.
Mhm.
Um, and some of the images I've gotten from it from the last couple of rolls I put through have been really cool. Like they're a lot of it's like really soft and stuff, but like it's given me like a new appreciation of like not having to like make things sharp and things like that. Like it's but with the eyesight stuff, like I get that too. Like I've got a wicked stigmatism
Mm.
um in my eyes. And I always knew about that, but then after the car accident, I got in to see an opt whatever eye
Ophthalmologist?
doctor. Yeah, ophthalmologist, and she did some like crazy looking into my eyes and testing my eyes and stuff, and found that they're on top of the stigmatism. They're fighting each other all the
Yeah,
time, and they're over focusing.
yeah,
Which she's like, before you got the brain injury, it was fine because like your brain would just ignore all of that extra input that was coming in. But she's like, now that you're dealing with the brain injury, like your brain can't handle all that extra input. So it's like it's tiring and it's exhausting. So I had to get these like special crazy ass glasses that have like things inside of it that like relax my eyes so that they're
yeah.
not over focusing all the time.
I have one pair like that. Mine do the same thing. It's really funny too
Yeah.
because I can feel that when it's happening, and it's kind of wild. Like I'll look at something and I can feel, you know, my eye will focus on it, and it's like, okay, this is sharp now. And if I move my eye, especially too quickly, like away and then to back to like the same thing, there'll be a moment where just kind of like an automatic zoom is just kind of like
Yeah.
and I got a pair of glasses like 4 years ago that they're transitions or whatever, so like there's different like whatever like planos or cylinders like going across
Okay.
or like down the whole thing, and I can feel my eyes like working differently like when they're like on different in different parts of the glasses. But yeah, somebody just commented about like the fear of losing eyesight, and it's like that's like I've become so accustomed to how shitty my eyes are, and I just because I'm too lazy to wear glasses most of the time. When I go out in the world and I happen to be wearing glasses, I am stunned by the HD nature of the world. and
Maybe that's your like subconscious trick to like always be amazed and surprised with the world is just like, look at it kind of in a muddy sense and then every once in a while like tune in HD and be like, wow,
yeah,
this
this
is
is like,
amazing.
oh my god, people can see like this, like they can see, wow. And yeah, I never thought of myself as being like totally married to like this is this the sense that I never want to lose because I don't know, they all kind of work together, and I consider myself a very sensually entrenched maybe slightly synesthetic person. But I think vision, like even though mine isn't that great, it's emerged as the one that I'm also just afraid to lose the most,
Me
probably.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's I get freaked out about it all the time, and it's just like it's as I'm getting older, I'm like, are my eyes gonna get worse? Like,
Well, they probably are. Like every time I've gone to get my eyes examined, like, and I think being a graphic designer is to blame for a lot of this.
yeah, staring at the
So
computer.
much like fine tuning bullshit. Like the I don't know, the exponential decline in my eyesight between like optometrist visits over the past several years has been just like not good. I mean, like I haven't gone. I need to go again. I'm not up to date, but I remember like the last one I went between that one and the one before. The doctor was like, "Wow, this is a lot. This is a lot bad." Yeah, I don't know. Like, we can probably all look forward to like becoming blind, but
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like at the end of the day, we're all just rotting bags of meat, so that's cool.
yeah. But it's a beautiful thing to
It's a beautiful decay of sorts, I
yeah.
guess. Yeah, life, it's fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
meat bag life.
what's that?
Meat bag life.
Meat, yeah, meat bag. Well, like that's the thing that's always like kind of blown my mind a little bit is like we're just like meat bags with a little spark of electricity that
And,
make
yeah,
it.
and water.
Yeah, like that's. I've always loved like the that line from Fifth Element when Bruce Willis is like, "I am a meat popsicle."
Wow, I haven't seen Fifth Element in probably well over 15 years.
Oh damn, it's a great one. Some of the we're all rotting bags of meat, but some of us
Yes, Lincoln.
have to go.
Looking up. I know personally I'm probably pretty tasty, but I it's going to be a while before any of us find out.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Some of us are probably going to be less tasty than others because I always think about like, did you ever grow up around like hunters as a kid
Oh
and like
yeah.
eat, like
Dude,
game
I'm
meat and
from New
stuff?
England. That's like all
Right.
anybody does there. And subsistence hunting.
Yeah, so it's like, have you ever had the displeasure of like eating a garbage bear?
Sorry, say that again.
Eating a garbage bear.
I haven't eaten a garbage bear.
It's kind of terrible. So
Okay.
it's like you don't know it when the hunters are shooting it, but it's like sometimes they'll end up getting like it's usually bears because they're the ones that go through garbage the most out in BC.
Oh.
But you get a bear that's like been predominantly living off of garbage, and it like eats the meat, and it does not taste very good at all. And I kind of picture that with like how some of the like how some of us eat and take care of ourselves. It's like, oh, there's definitely some like human garbage bears out there.
Ah, even garbage bear. My
Yeah.
diet over the pandemic, well, my diet since getting sick and getting better has turned more into whatever the fuck I feel like could be garbage. I used to care a lot more. Um, Now I'm eating healthy dark chocolate nuggets that my mother-in-law brought me for like as part of like an Easter sort of like care package drop off because we don't do like real Easter anymore, obviously. And I'm a lapsed Catholic. I don't want to celebrate Easter anymore, but she doesn't. So she still thinks I'm healthy, so she got me healthy candy. But I don't
I'm
know.
a terrible Catholic. Like, I mean, I went through and got all my like Catholic honor badges except for touched by a priest. Um, Yeah, which is kind of like amazing because I did spend a few years as an altar boy, so it's just like, damn,
Oh,
like, you
you
know,
put in your time. I did,
I,
like, I got all the badges. I just GTFO. You know, I
we
don't.
were terrible altar boys though. Like, we, um, we used to steal the sacramental wine.
I mean, like, who doesn't? Um,
Well, so and this is like what started. I think this is where like my understanding of like ethical gray areas began. Like this could have been like one of the earliest things that I remember that like started building the foundation of the ethical gray areas that I live in today. But we caught the priest imbibing in the sacramental wine in like the downstairs area where you would like get all prepped up and everything.
yes,
And
everybody stole the wine.
yeah, so we were just like, well, if the big man's taking it, then we'll just take a little bit here. Like
Yeah.
we caught him like he was not only like drinking the wine, but he was like snacking on the wafers. Like he was all fucking
Okay,
loaded, just like drinking like
it's there. Sometimes the motherfucker got low blood sugar, like
Jesus juice. Yeah.
Jesus juice. Also, okay, so stopped going to Catholic church when I was like young, and then we moved, and then my mom found all of the Catholic churches in North America dissatisfactory because they are weird. Like they're a lot more like weird and like culty and kind of like I don't know. Polish Catholicism is very like it's your shit. You met. It's like this is a quiet time. This is like you and God. Like we just don't get an abortion. Like we love Mary. Nature
Yeah.
great. In North America, church is very like in your face, like we're singing all the time, and she was just like, "This is weird." So we ended up going to kind of like a oh okay, so it was like a UCC church. Like later when I was like
Sorry, what you see?
you okay, so United Church of Christ is kind of
Oh,
it's
okay.
like a
Yeah.
Protestant branch, but they're sort of like the more like lenient and cool.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, they had the best bread that I've ever tasted in my life. Um, no doubt because it was baked by these like wonderful middle-aged to senior New England ladies who knew how to bake the fuck out of some bread. Um,
Nice.
and they would like give you like a nice piece like when you were doing the sacrament, and I was just like inch and a half thick slice of like fluffy ass New England white bread. And I remember thinking like when I was like really young, just like this is just tasty. Like why am I even here? Um anyway, that was a tangent.
Like
Do you
you were
think
there to eat
Catholic
the
what?
blood of, you were there to eat the body of Christ.
Yeah, I know. Do you think Catholics um do you think we live up to our stereotype as being like I don't know, having a hedonistic bent because we've been told so many things about living are bad?
Um, yeah, like I mean, fuck, like I'm almost 40 and there are still times where I still feel guilty about masturbating. Because
No.
yeah, sometimes like it like it creeps in my mind there. Um, yeah, because like when I was a kid, like my parents would be like, you know, you, Jesus and God are like watching you up above, and your grandpa's watching you, and I was just like, ew.
I don't know.
No
Never
one should be
like
watching what I do on my alone time.
I never allowed that to get to me, obviously. Yeah, that one that's now we're getting into things that have nothing to do with photography, but could have something to do with photography and is something that I'm very passionate about, which is the expression of sensuality that is not a sexualized facet of human experience.
Well, and so that's an interesting thing because like I
Because
was
all the shit about like I'm sorry, I'm just gonna like
no, go ahead.
everything that happened like this past year with Sesta, Fosta, Instagram, everything, Protestant culture, making anything that has to do with the human body, like it's sexy. It's like, you know what? No, it is just a body.
Yeah.
You find it attractive in that way, that's good. But that cannot be the only way that we read the human body, and it becomes a very, very huge fucking pain in the ass thing to reckon with, especially as a woman who creates work that is in the like sensual, erotic. Well, it's called erotic photography because it's naked bodies, which I fucking hate.
Yeah.
Photography realm, to constantly have to like perform this like, oh my god, if I do this, is it too sexy? Do I even care? No, I don't care, but I hate the fact that some things are going to be read as such, and their very existence is going to be read as erotic, when it's really just about occupying a body and kind of like loving the fact that it can look away and be away and exist away however I choose to portray it. Yeah, North America's done a damn job of just like sewing that thing right up for everybody.
Well, yeah, like I mean, the puritanical underpinnings of like the societal construct we live in has done so much great good.
So many wonderful things.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I yeah, like the sexualization of things is an interesting one because like I was seeing a bunch of stories and I talked with some friends today about like a few more photographers who were ousted as like um you know being predators and things like that. And it's just like it's so fucked up that like there's so many people out there that can't separate like nudity and things like that from sexualization. It's like never once when I've been shooting someone who is naked have I been like, oh my god, I'm like so fucking horny and like want to like do shit with this person right now. It's like that's not like what that moment is about. Like it doesn't like I remember like a shoot I was doing last summer. It was like fucking hilarious. Like the two of them were like totally like buck ass naked, and we were like, I think we were talking about like rotting corpses or something like like other shit. You're just having like these really weird, just like fucking crazy like conversations, and it was just completely unfazing that they were two very beautiful naked people in front of me that that had nothing to do with that moment. And I think like the some of these like religious upbringings and these very like strict like puritanical upbringings that so many people have been brought up in are the main contributing factor of like all of this like sexual abuse and inappropriate behavior and things like that because um we've made sex seem like a bad thing and
And
like a taboo.
it's not just that, it's been over times, generation, millennia, it's been not only culturally entrenched, but like there's kind of just like this psychological sort of short wiring, that's been encouraged. If you want to go back to like how religion and like especially kind of like more serious and orthodox forms of some religion treat sexual impulse. Yeah, like exactly. It's repression of these things that are very normal and human that creates a dividing consciousness and the need to say it's bad, put it in a bucket, and like not
Yeah.
have anything to do with it, because they've been so like made black or white. Like if it's naked, it's sex. If it's sex, it's bad. Or if it's like
Yeah.
if it's the human body, it's sex. If it's sex, it's bad. So that makes anything that falls into that set of categories like bad. And as time goes on, the repression just gets more and more like kind of like insidious. Like you can't help but not notice it because it's so much a part of how you view the world now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has become very insidious, and it's very problematic. And it's like, I was talking to a friend today about like sexism issues and like how we need to address it, and how difficult it is to address because there's a lot of sensitivity around it, um, and rightly so, because like, it is a very sensitive matter, um, that men actually need to be a lot more involved in, because men are the problem with it. And so it's just like, having conversations and not including men as part of those conversations isn't going to fix it,
Yeah.
because you know men need to understand why this is a problem and why women feel uncomfortable and unsafe in the presence of men. Because like, a guy would be like, well, I'm a good guy, like I'm not going to do anything. It's like, well, how does that person know that though? They don't, because their experience with men have been, not a positive experience. Like every woman I know has been like sexually assaulted or abused, or like, something has happened to them that has ruined their, like every single woman I know has had something happen to them, whether it be like, something small like unwanted attention, or like, something large, but like, something that they didn't want happen to them by a man that was like, justified by that man, because, well, I was just giving like a nice comment, or like, I was just like appreciating their look or something. And it's like, you can do that and not be a total fucking creep, or just like appreciate that yourself, keep it to yourself. Do you need to share that with that person?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's, yeah. And that was like, that is something that kept me from wanting to explore working with people in photography, because I had a fear about that, because like I'd seen like, so many bad dude photographers, and like, there's just so much problematic shit out there. And um I just didn't want to like be like another guy with a camera trying to take pictures of people. Even though I know that I'm not like that, it's like, other people don't. And then it seems really weird when you're like, hi, I'm not a rapist, can I take your picture? Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
and
gonna
I
record
mean,
you while you're changing.
we all have to appreciate like the nuance in that side of the experience, as well as the nuance that's entailed in actually removing gender from it completely, and just thinking about how people are and how they like to be treated, um, and what might, like obviously the patriarchy is the thing that informs everything that we're talking about right now, and none of this would be exactly what it is without the patriarchy. But
Mm-hmm.
I've been recently in my head trying to actually extract gender from it a lot, and just think of like, what are human being respect boundaries, and everybody has different, you know bounds within which they feel comfortable, and would like to be appreciated, and were not appreciated, and even objectified, and not objectified. And yeah, it's like, it's important to like know why you're doing something, and continually seek to be corrected,
Mm-hmm.
just by way of doing it as time goes forward. And I think, as you said, it's also extremely important to keep having those conversations with your cohort, and people that that might be doing the same thing, and why are they doing it, and what can they do to make it better and more comfortable for the, you know, in your case and in our case, like models that work with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's like, man, there's so much there. I personally like looked into getting back into modeling last summer, and then I got sick, and then I was like, yeah, it's all like all this like zeitgeisty stuff sort of like unfolded, just like on Instagram, and again like with photography and like, and then so many photographers were like outed, like less
Yeah,
like
so
big
many of
fashion
them.
photographers were outed like last summer and stuff, and I was just like, I don't know. I love modeling, but it's gross, and I can't even like, man, what models have to put up with and sort of like internalize and just like, okay, this is a work day. Like, yes, this might happen. I got to be ready for this to happen. What they have to be ready for in that sense is just kind of like, I couldn't, you know, I wouldn't be able to do work if that kind of concern were always in the back of my mind. I think it's nice to photograph myself and be in control in that sense. And hopefully, like, thoughts on a Rocky. Oh man, that's a good one. Um, I'm gonna finish my thought.
Okay.
Thoughts on a Rocky. And that actually goes into just like when I think about this kind of like photography, fashion, nudes, anything that can be read as like having a sexual undercurrent, whether it actually does or does not, creatively. Yeah. I don't even remember what I was saying now, because my brain just went to Iraqi and I just like had a big mind explosion. Yeah, there's a lot there. Okay, Iraqi.
Well, and before jumping onto that one, I did want to like just sort of touch on what you mentioned there about like pulling gender out of the conversation, and you know, I think that is like probably a good way to go about it, because it isn't just binary where it's like, you know, men against women now, like, you know, or women against, like, you know, whatever. Like there's so like the landscape in that realm is so much more dynamic now than it ever has been before. And I think like a big problem if it's like, you know, the matriarchy fighting the patriarchy, and like the matriarchy trying to, like, you know, overthrow and take control, is like we're just swinging the pendulum from one end to the other, and it's going to be a new set of people running similar problems. You know, it's, I think like really fixing it means that like we acknowledge and take responsibility for what the patriarchy has like committed as sins against everybody, and just be like, how do we move from here, instead of like the fucking blame game and getting angry about it, which, you know, justifiably so, because it is like aggravating shit that's going on every fucking day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not helping us find a way to fix it.
No. And the last thing I'll add there is that the reason why it rubs so many people the wrong way is because people tend to personalize these power struggles, and not recognize that this is not about the existence of men. This is about the existence of power structures like the patriarchy, that we are all subject to. Like we all have been reared in this environment, and are, you know, if you want to like get really like nitty gritty about it, like have internalized the male gaze, like all that shit. So yeah, I think that's the thing, is that so many people that like, oh my god, it's like not all men, and like this is not my problem, I've always been great to women. It's like, no, like who gives a fuck what you've been? You've probably done some shitty shit. You've got to give yourself that pass, or like acknowledge that you've probably done shitty things to women. We all have. But it's not about you. It's about what we live in and the things that have informed how we think and how we move in the world that we have to break down.
Absolutely. And I mean, like the brutal reality is that as much as most men try to portray themselves as these like strong machismo, like, you know, have it all together, whatever, powerful types, probably most of them are not that at all.
Men are
Very
people too.
well,
Men,
they're people too, but like a lot of them, like, you know, especially a lot of the alphas require a lot more care and feeding than they would ever want to admit to, and a lot of them are very reliant on women in their lives and other people in their lives to like prop them up and give them that power. And like that's an unfortunate part of the conditioning that's been put out there, is
Mhm.
that, you know, these powerful women or these powerful men have been propped up by powerful women that for the most part just stand in the shadows while these, like, you know, men run things. And
Well, yeah, and that just goes back to like socialization. Like women are socialized um, to be emotional managers and seek resolution, and men tend to be socialized to hide, which is not good. That's repression again. That's telling an entire segment of the population that when they're upset, sad, worried, angry, depressed, they can't show it. And if they do, they have to choose who they show it to wisely, or they might not be perceived the way they want to be perceived rather.
that's how you get Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Iraqi, tell me about this because I'm curious. I'm not familiar with this.
Oh, okay. Let me see. I'm just like, is my yeah, okay, perfect. And this is good because like when we started getting into this, I was like, oh, because a big thing that I do a lot of diving into just out of personal interest is like the history of photography that could be considered erotic, whether it is actual like old pinup photography, all that stuff. This is great. So this is a God, I don't know what year this was. Probably 2015. This is an issue of Foam where they did like a whole fucking dive. So Iraqi is known for explicit sexual and sensual themes that are fleshed, like play on words, whatever, fleshed out with varying degrees of innuendo, and usually involving like textural and light ev- um, textural and light, I don't know, plays upon like what sex is. And some of his work does like dive right into just like extremely, so he does stuff like more, I don't know if that's even going to register, like very explicit
Okay.
studies of like, you know, a sexualized gaze of a woman. There's like tying and bondage themes that occur. So it kind of like, his stuff does like run the gamut. And I think that I personally really love his work. And I know that this is another instance where like I personally might suffer the willingness to divorce a need to completely understand where the work is coming from from my reaction to the work, which is that I love it. And I like the way it looks, and I like the way I like the way it explores what it explores in and of itself. And I find that it's an interesting critical relationship to observe in yourself. I think because, especially when we're dealing with subject matter like this, we want to be as holistic as possible. and understand why was it made, what were they thinking, how are they using the people that they photographed, who was it for. Those are all things that I want to be weighing in my head when I look at work like this, because it deals with, you know, like actual perception of human beings and all these things that are very intimate and easily harmed. Um, and I find that's the exact like kind of like devil angel shoulders situation that occurs whenever I look at photography in this category. Man, there's another book that I have upstairs that's like really, really on the nose for this, but I don't feel like going upstairs and getting it. I don't know. Like my thoughts on Iraqi are like, I love the work. I flip back and forth between like, as far as like the man and why, like finding discomfort with that, and then just like completely loving what he makes. So, you know, and once again, we are all subject to the patriarchy and internalized male gaze and like all these things that erupt whenever we look at things like this and wonder why we like them or if we should.
Interesting. I'll have to check out his work because I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, so I think like he does a lot of it, aside from that, like assemblages with just like extremely vibrant botanicals that again are like quite sensual and evocative in their own way and tend to like have a lot of like narrative stuff going on. Alex recently did like kind of like a sort of in studio thing where he played with a lot of that stuff. Yeah, I find the history of not even just like erotic or pinup photography, but even just like the like nude subjects very interesting in general. Especially when we're trying to locate like who, again, why, who it was for, down to like did money change hands, like how is it distributed, like who felt that this was a need that had to be filled and who participated in it and why. Because they're all little like ways that repression and denial of things that are very real and human have leaked out of, again, the social structures that we live in. Because when you tell people that something is bad and wrong, they will find ways to create, distribute, digest, and indulge in the things that are bad and wrong.
Yeah, they do. It's like whenever someone tells you like you shouldn't do that or you can't, it's like, yeah, now I want that. Now I want to do that. Yeah. We're weird creatures.
I don't know. There's this thing of when like, so like as a designer, I was like constraints. Constraints make things more beautiful and potent, and they give structure and meaning to what we do. Talking about, I guess, everything that we've talked about for the past like half hour always gets me to thinking and wondering like,
Thinking, wondering which.
sorry, what would it be like to suddenly have the world change around us and, you know, like have sex work not be like this so totally taboo thing, have the patriarchy not exist, have like, you know, porn be normalized, like all that shit. Like what what kind of society would we be living in, and what kinds of art would be created? I
Oh,
think my
you
phone is
froze up
like,
there for that. Your phone's dying.
Could be this. Yep.
Well, we have been at this for almost 2 hours now, so I guess we'll take your phone glitching out as a good point to say thank you for joining me on a very interesting photo chat. That's why I love these things, and like that's why I don't have any agenda around it because like I like to go where the conversation leads, and with the loose thing being photography is like sort of what we're talking about here, but these are all very important things that we all need to be having conversations about with the people around us.
I'm glad I made it.
Me too, and I'm so stoked to see you in a couple weeks.
Me too. And I will give you some houseplants.
Yes, I'm excited for that housewarming gifts.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another episode. Thank you to Monika, and they do it right that time.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And then next week I've got Brian G from Chicago, actually Elgin, Illinois. He is my brother from another mother with the Polaroids. So I'm excited to have Brian on. Also, he is a god with tintypes, so that'll be a very interesting chat next week, talking about large format photography and instant photography as well. So yeah, thanks everyone, and
Okay.
stay safe out there. Canada
Canada is on fire.
yeah, COVID with fire, sure. Yeah, I heard that like they're projecting we're going to be like 7,000 cases daily in the next couple weeks here in Ontario. So that's cool.
Uh,
Yeah, so wear a mask over the nose, wash your hands, stay safe. I love all you guys.
as my mom once said, now is the time to stay the fuck away from people.
Yes, if there ever was a time to, now is that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye on that bombshell. Take care, everyone.